Chapter 1, Divorce for a Dying Man. Rain poured heavily outside the floor-to-ceiling windows. Inside the luxurious living room, the atmosphere was colder than winter. A thin document landed on the glass table with a sharp sound. "Sign it." The woman standing in front of the sofa spoke calmly, as if she were discussing something trivial. Her name was Li Xinyu, his wife of 3 years. Chen Ming looked down slowly. The words divorce agreement pierced his eyes. His fingers tightened unconsciously. "Why?" he finally asked, his voice hoarse. Li Xinyu crossed her arms impatiently. "My secretary Lin Hao has terminal cancer. He only has a few months left. He has always loved me." Chen Ming felt as if lightning struck his brain. "What does that have to do with divorce?" Li Xinyu frowned, as if his question was childish. "His last wish is to marry me, so I'll fulfill it." Her tone was completely natural, like she was saying she would attend a dinner party. Chen Ming stared at her in disbelief. 3 years of marriage, and she wanted to divorce him just to marry another man. "For a dying man," he said quietly. "Yes." Li Xinyu nodded coldly. "He's been loyal to me for years. He deserves this." Chen Ming opened his mouth. He wanted to object. He wanted to shout. He wanted to ask her if their marriage meant nothing. But before he could speak, suddenly, strange glowing texts appeared in front of his eyes, like floating comments from a live stream. Bullet screen appeared. "Here it comes. The idiot husband still doesn't know the truth. Poor guy, his wife already cheated with the secretary long ago. That Lin Hao doesn't have cancer at all. Exactly, he has HIV. He plans to marry her so she won't leave him. Once she's infected, she'll be tied to him forever." Classic scumbag move. Chen Ming's entire body froze. His breathing stopped. The words kept flashing. HIV, fake cancer, cheating. His brain struggled to process the information. Was he hallucinating? Or were these messages telling the truth? He slowly looked at Li Xinyu. Her expression was already turning impatient. "Why aren't you signing?" Chen Ming said nothing. His heart pounded violently. The bullet screen continued appearing. Look at his face. He's realizing something. Too bad he's still going to agree in the original story. Yeah, this guy is such a pushover. After divorce, she marries Lin Hao, gets infected, and then tries to come back. But by then, Chen Ming already lost everything. His company is taken by her too. Chen Ming's fingers slowly clenched. So this was the future. His wife cheating, his company stolen, his life destroyed, all because he trusted her. Across from him, Li Xinyu misunderstood his silence. Her face darkened. "Chen Ming, you're not seriously refusing, are you?" Her voice rose sharply. "My secretary only has a few months left to live. Can't you be a little mature? He just wants to fulfill his final wish. How can you be so cruel?" "Cruel?" The word felt ironic. The bullet screen floated again. "While she's acting again, Oscar-level acting. She's already slept with Lin Hao countless times. And she calls her husband cruel." Chen Ming almost laughed, but he suppressed it. He lifted his head slowly. His eyes had turned completely cold. At that moment, Li Xinyu suddenly grabbed a teacup from the table. Smash! She threw it toward him. The cup shattered against his shoulder. Hot tea splashing everywhere. "You disgust me. Lin Hao is dying and you're jealous of him." Her voice trembled with anger. Chen Ming looked at the broken porcelain on the floor. The pain in his shoulder was nothing compared to the pain in his chest. 3 years. 3 years of marriage. In her eyes, he was less important than a secretary. The bullet screen flashed again. "Brother, don't sign. Start the revenge arc. First investigate Lin Hao. Expose the fake cancer. Then destroy them both." Chen Ming slowly stood up. Rain thundered outside. His expression was calm. Too calm. Li Xinyu felt strangely uneasy. "What are you doing?" Chen Ming picked up the divorce agreement. He looked at it quietly, then he smiled faintly. "Divorce? Sure." Li Xinyu relaxed immediately. She thought he had finally come to his senses. But the next second, Chen Ming tore the document in half. Rip. Then again. Rip. Pieces of paper fell like snow. Li Xinyu's eyes widened. "Chen Ming, what are you doing?" Chen Ming met her gaze. For the first time in years, his eyes held no love, only cold calculation. "You want a divorce? Fine, but not today." His voice was calm and terrifying. "I'll give it to you. After I attend your wedding. Isn't just wedding you can have first." Li Xinyu frowned. "What nonsense are you talking about?" Chen Ming smiled slightly, a smile that made her strangely uncomfortable. "Nothing. I just suddenly became more mature. Outside, thunder roared, and Chen Ming already made a decision. If the bullet screen was telling the truth, then this time, he would rewrite the ending and make everyone who betrayed him pay the price. Chapter 2, Secret Investigation. The rain had already stopped, but the cold inside Chen Ming's heart only grew heavier. After leaving the villa that night, he sat alone in his car for a long time, staring at the glowing bullet screens that still occasionally appeared before his eyes. Step 1. Investigate Lin Hao. Check the hospital. The cancer report is fake. Chen Ming took a deep breath. If these bullet screens were real, then his entire life had been a lie. He picked up his phone and dialed a number. Old Liu. A sleepy voice answered. Chen Ming, it's midnight, what's wrong? Old Liu was his college friend, and now a private investigator. I need you to investigate someone. Name, Lin Hao, secretary of Li Xinyu. There was a short pause. That guy, isn't he always following your wife around? Chen Ming's voice turned cold. I want everything about him. Medical records, bank transfers, personal relationships, everything. Old Liu laughed lightly. Sounds serious. How fast do you need it? Tomorrow. Chen Ming hung up the phone and leaned back in his seat. The bullet screen appeared again. Good move. Once he sees the hospital records, everything will make sense. Poor guy, he's finally waking up. Chen Ming closed his eyes. 3 years. He had loved Li Xinyu with all his heart. He built the company from nothing so she could live comfortably. But she repaid him with betrayal. This time, he would not be the fool again. Chapter 3, Discovering the Fake Cancer. The next afternoon, a thick folder landed on Chen Ming's desk. Old Liu leaned back in his chair. You owe me a drink for this. Chen Ming opened the file. The first page contained Lin Hao's hospital records. Diagnosis, no cancer detected. Chen Ming's pupils shrank. He flipped to the next page. HIV positive. The room fell silent, even though the bullet screen had warned him. Seeing it written in black ink still made his chest tighten. Old Liu frowned. This guy's weird. He visited the hospital several times, pretending to have cancer, but the doctors never diagnosed him with it. Chen Ming flipped further. Then he saw something worse. Hotel records, photos, surveillance images, Lin Hao entering hotels with Li Xinyu, date after date. This month when he on business trip, his wife and her secretary. Old Liu scratched his head awkwardly. I didn't know she was your wife when I took the job. Chen Ming closed the folder slowly. His face was calm. Too calm. The bullet screen appeared again. Here comes the real heartbreak. In the original story, he forgives her even after seeing this. Please don't forgive this time. Chen Ming laughed quietly. Forgive? Impossible. Chapter 4, The Secretary's Dark Plan. At the same time, in Li Xinyu's office, Lin Hao leaned comfortably against the desk. He looked pale and weak, pretending to be sick. Li Xinyu looked worried. Are you feeling better today? Lin Hao smiled gently. I'm fine, but the doctor said I may not have much time left. Li Xinyu's eyes turned red. You won't die. Lin Hao reached out and held her hand. Xinyu, my only regret is that I can't officially call you my wife. Li Xinyu squeezed his hand. You will. I already asked Chen Ming for a divorce. Lin Hao lowered his head to hide the dark smile on his lips. Everything was going according to plan. Once he married her, sooner or later she and her money become his. Then she would never leave him. He whispered softly, You're the only person who ever loved me. Li Xinyu hugged him immediately. I'll stay with you until the end. Outside the office door, an employee secretly watched them with shock. Chapter 5, The Wife Starts Regretting. That night, Li Xinyu returned home. The house was dark and silent. For the first time in years, Chen Ming wasn't waiting for her. No warm dinner, no lights, no message, just emptiness. She frowned slightly. Where did he go? She checked her phone. No calls, no texts. For some reason, she felt strangely uncomfortable. 3 years of marriage. Chen Ming had always been gentle and patient, even when she scolded him, even when she ignored him. But today, something about him felt different. His eyes, they were cold. The bullet screen floated beside Chen Ming somewhere in the city. She's starting to feel uneasy. But it's too late. Wait until the wedding. Chapter 6, Public Revenge at the Wedding. 2 weeks later, the wedding venue was luxurious. Li Xinyu wore a white dress. Standing beside her was Lin Hao, looking weak and pale. Guests whispered quietly, Everyone knew the strange story. A CEO divorcing her husband to marry her dying secretary. People called it true love, but Chen Ming sat calmly in the back row. The bullet screen exploded with excitement. The revenge scene. This is the best part. The ceremony host smiled. Does anyone object to this marriage? The room stayed silent. Li Xinyu looked proud. But suddenly, a calm voice spoke. I object. Everyone turned. Chen Ming slowly stood up. Li Xinyu frowned. Chen Ming, what are you doing? Lin Hao's eyes flashed with panic. Chen Ming walked toward the stage. His expression was calm. Since today is such an important day, I prepared some gifts. He snapped his fingers. The giant screen behind the stage suddenly turned on. First image, hospital record. HIV positive, Lin Hao gasps filled the hall. Second image, hotel surveillance. Lin Hao and Li Xinyu entering rooms together. Before the divorce, before everything, the crowd exploded. What, they were cheating? Li Xinyu's face turned pale. Chen Ming, turn it off. But Chen Ming only smiled slightly. He looked at Lin Hao. By the way, you forgot to tell my ex-wife something. Hao trembled. Chen Ming spoke clearly so everyone could hear. Your beloved husband doesn't have cancer. He has HIV. The hall fell completely silent. Li Xinyu's entire body froze. Her mind went blank. Chen Ming leaned closer and whispered calmly. Congratulations on your marriage. My lawyer in touch for divorce. Then he turned around and walked away. Behind him screams chaos, and the sound of a life completely collapsing. Chapter 7, Li Xinyu breaks down. The wedding hall descended into chaos. Guests whispered loudly. Phones came out. Videos were being recorded everywhere. Li Xinyu stood frozen on the stage, her mind completely blank. HIV. Her lips trembled as she slowly turned toward Lin Hao. His face was pale, but this time, it wasn't acting. You lied to me. Lin Hao stepped back. No, Xinyu, listen to me. Before he could finish, Li Xinyu screamed. You said you had cancer. You said you only had a few months left. Tears streamed down her face. The giant screen behind them still displayed the hospital report. HIV positive Lin Hao. Suddenly, a terrifying thought flashed in her mind. Her body began shaking violently. Her voice turned into a whisper. How long have you had it? Lin Hao avoided her eyes. 6 months. The words hit her like a hammer. 6 months. They had been sleeping together for months. Her legs lost all strength. She collapsed onto the stage. No, no, no. Her breathing became frantic. I need to go to the hospital. The bullet screen appeared again. She finally realized. Too late. Karma. Chapter 8, Lin Hao's arrest. The next morning, police cars stopped outside the wedding hotel. 2 officers walked inside. Lin Hao. Lin Hao was still sitting in the hall, looking completely defeated. Yes, you are under arrest. His head snapped up. For what? The officer spoke calmly. Intentional disease transmission. Gasp spread through the remaining guests. The officer continued. We received medical records and evidence showing you knowingly hid your HIV condition and continued intimate relationships. We also received evidence of fraud and falsified medical documents. Lin Hao's face turned completely white. He looked toward the exit desperately, but Chen Ming was already gone. The bullet screen floated again. Chen Ming reported him last night. Game over, prison arc begins. Handcuffs clicked around Lin Hao's wrists. For the first time, real fear appeared in his eyes. Chapter 9, Wife begs Chen Ming to forgive her. 3 days later, the hospital corridor smelled strongly of disinfectant. Li Xinyu sat outside the testing room. Her hands trembled uncontrollably. The doctor finally walked out with the report. Miss Li. She grabbed the paper. Her eyes scanned the results. Then everything went dark. HIV positive, the report slipped from her fingers. No, tears streamed down her face. Her entire world collapsed. Suddenly, she remembered someone. Chen Ming. She rushed out of the hospital immediately. 2 hours later, she stood outside Chen Ming's company building. When Chen Ming walked out, she ran toward him. Chen Ming. Employees nearby froze in shock. Li Xinyu grabbed his sleeve and fell to her knees. I'm sorry, I was wrong. Please forgive me. Her makeup was ruined. Her eyes were swollen from crying. I didn't know he had HIV. I thought he was dying. I was stupid. Chen Ming looked down at her calmly. There was no anger. No sadness, just indifference. You made your choice. Li Xinyu cried harder. Please, I'm sick now. I don't have anyone. You're my husband. Chen Ming gently removed her hand from his sleeve. His voice was quiet. We're getting divorced. I don't want I not divorcing you, she screamed. It's not up to you, I already file for divorce with your betrayal picture. Court already granted, you leave with nothing. The words felt colder than ice. Li Xinyu collapsed onto the ground as he walked away without looking back. The bullet screen appeared again. Regret arc begins, Chen Ming is done. Chapter 10, The Ultimate Revenge. 1 week later, Chen Ming walked into a hospital. Even though he had never been with Li Xinyu, after discovering the truth, he still wanted to be safe. The doctor took his blood sample. You'll get the results in an hour. Chen Ming sat quietly in the waiting room. The bullet screen floated again. Don't worry, he's clean. Stop touching her months before the wedding. Chen Ming sighed slightly. Even if the bullet screens were right, he still wanted confirmation. An hour later, the doctor returned. Mr. Chen, your test result is negative. Chen Ming finally relaxed. For the first time in weeks, he smiled outside the hospital. The sun was bright, his phone rang. It was his lawyer. Mr. Chen, the court has accepted the divorce. Your ex-wife transferred half of the company's shares illegally during the marriage. We can reclaim everything. Chen Ming looked toward the sky. His voice was calm. Proceed. Behind him, somewhere in the city, Li Xinyu sat alone in a dark apartment, watching the news. Former CEO Li Xinyu faces company investigation. Tears fell silently down her face. She had destroyed everything for a lie, and the man who once loved her more than anything had already walked out of her life forever. The bullet screen slowly faded. Revenge complete. New life begins. Extra Arc 1, Li Xinyu's miserable ending. 6 months later, the once glamorous CEO Li Xinyu sat alone in a small, dim apartment. The luxurious villa was gone. Her luxury cars were gone. Even the company she once controlled had been taken back by Chen Ming, after the court proved the shares were illegally transferred. Now she lived in silence. The TV played a business news channel. Chen Group announces its expansion into international markets. CEO Chen Ming is expected to become one of the youngest billionaires in the country. Li Xinyu's hands trembled. Chen Ming, that name once belonged to her husband, but she threw him away. For a lie. Her health was getting worse every month. The medication for HIV was expensive. Without her company and wealth, paying for treatment had become a constant struggle. Her phone suddenly rang. It was an old friend. Xinyu, I heard about your situation. Li Xinyu's eyes lit up slightly, but the next sentence crushed her. I think it's better if we stop contacting each other. People are talking. It might affect my reputation. The call ended. Li Xinyu slowly lowered the phone. One by one, everyone had left her. Her career, her friends, her love, everything disappeared. Tears fell silently. For the first time in her life, she truly understood the meaning of regret. But regret came too late. Extra Arc 2, Chen Ming meets a new woman. 1 year later, Chen Ming sat inside a quiet cafe after a long business meeting. His company had grown rapidly. The bullet screen that once appeared had slowly disappeared after his revenge was completed. Sometimes he wondered if it had ever been real. Just as he finished his coffee, a woman rushed into the cafe. Crash! She accidentally bumped into his table, spilling her documents everywhere. Oh no! She quickly crouched down to pick them up. Chen Ming helped gather the papers. While handing them back, he noticed something interesting. They were startup business proposals. The woman noticed his curiosity and laughed awkwardly. I'm trying to start my own company, but investors keep rejecting me. Chen Ming asked calmly, what kind of company? Artificial intelligence software. She looked embarrassed. Everyone says it's too risky. Chen Ming studied her carefully. Her eyes were bright, determined, very different from Li Xinyu. What's your name? Su Yan. Chen Ming smiled slightly. Maybe you just haven't met the right investor yet. That afternoon, Chen Ming decided to fund her project. Neither of them realized that moment would become the start of something much bigger. And perhaps, something warmer. Extra Arc 3, Lin Hao's life in prison. Meanwhile, far away in a cold prison cell, Lin Hao sat silently on a metal bed. His once handsome appearance had completely disappeared. His fellow inmates avoided him after learning about his illness. The prison doctor visited regularly for treatment, but nothing could change his reality. One night, he stared blankly at the ceiling. He remembered the wedding day, the moment Chen Ming exposed everything. If he had never lied, if he had never tried to trap Li Xinyu, maybe his life would have been different. But now, he had nothing left. Years of prison awaited him. and his health continued to deteriorate. The regret in his heart was useless. The prison lights turned off. Darkness filled the cell, the company empire Chen Ming builds. 5 years later, a massive glass skyscraper stood in the center of the city. Chen Group headquarters. Business magazines called Chen Ming a genius entrepreneur. His company dominated technology, finance, and international trade. Inside the top-floor office, Chen Ming stood beside the window overlooking the city. Su Yan walked in with a smile. "Another company wants to cooperate with us." Chen Ming laughed lightly. "Let them wait." Su Yan teased him. "CEO Chen is getting arrogant." Chen Ming shook his head. "Not arrogant, just busy." The two looked out at the city together. The empire Chen Ming built from nothing had become stronger than anyone imagined. Sometimes he remembered the painful past, but now those memories felt distant, because the future ahead was much brighter. And for the first time in many years, Chen Ming truly felt free. Extra arc, Li Xinyu sees Chen Ming with his new wife and completely breaks down. 7 years later, autumn wind blew through the city streets. Li Xinyu walked slowly along the sidewalk, wearing a simple coat and mask. Time had changed her greatly. Her once elegant figure had become thin and fragile. The expensive clothes and jewelry she once loved were long gone. She now worked a small office job that barely covered her medical expenses. Every month, most of her salary went to medication. Life had become a quiet struggle. That afternoon, she finished work early and stopped at a nearby park. Children were playing. Families were laughing. The peaceful scene made her heart ache. She once dreamed of a life like this. A warm home, a loving husband, maybe even children. But she destroyed it all herself. Just as she was about to leave, a familiar voice suddenly reached her ears. "Careful, you'll fall." Her body froze. That voice, even after so many years, she would never forget it. Slowly, she turned around. Not far away, a tall man stood beside a small playground. It was Chen Ming. He looked almost the same as before. Confident, calm, successful. But the biggest difference was the gentle smile on his face. Beside him stood a beautiful woman, Su Yan, and between them was a little girl, about 5 or 6 years old. The girl laughed happily, while Chen Ming held her hand to help her climb the slide. "Daddy, look." Chen Ming chuckled. "I'm watching." Su Yan smiled warmly beside them. The three of them looked like the perfect family. Li Xinyu felt as if her heart had been stabbed. Her breathing became uneven. That place beside him once belonged to her. Those gentle smiles once were meant for her, but she gave everything away. The little girl ran toward Chen Ming and hugged his leg. "Daddy, carry me." Chen Ming lifted her easily. "All right." Su Yan laughed. "You spoil her too much." Chen Ming replied softly. "She's our daughter, of course I'll spoil her." The words shattered Li Xinyu's remaining strength. Her legs trembled. Tears slowly blurred her vision. She quickly turned away, trying to hide. But at that moment, the little girl suddenly looked toward her direction. "Daddy, someone is crying." Chen Ming turned his head. For a brief moment, his eyes met Li Xinyu's. Time seemed to freeze. Li Xinyu's heart pounded violently, but Chen Ming's expression was calm. There was no hatred, no anger, just the distant politeness of a stranger. He gently looked away, as if she were simply a passerby. Nothing more. That indifference hurt more than any hatred. Li Xinyu covered her mouth as tears poured uncontrollably. Her shoulders shook. She had imagined this moment many times, but she never thought it would hurt this much. The family walked away together. Their laughter slowly faded into the distance. Li Xinyu collapsed onto a park bench, crying quietly. If she had never believed Lin Hao, if she had trusted Chen Ming, that warm family could have been hers. But fate did not give second chances. The autumn wind blew through the empty park, and Li Xinyu finally understood something. Some mistakes in life could never be repaired.